And following on from Martin and Israel Folau, I'd like to tell you the story of some everyday Australians who have faced exactly the same issues as Israel, but because they're not famous, because they're not high profile, not everyone gets to hear their stories. Because Human Rights Law Alliance exists for Christians like you. We are here for Christians who seek to be faithful in an increasingly hostile society and culture. So we want to give you a sense of the personal spiritual journeys of some of these people. Now, I'm doubly disqualified to just talk to you about it because, firstly, I'm a lawyer, and everyone knows we're cold, heartless, and unfeeling. And to compound that, I'm a Reformed Presbyterian, frozen chosen, and that means that I don't talk about my feelings or my personal faith, but I have real clients here who are going to do just that. They're going to talk to you about what it feels like to be attacked for your faith, how they've reached out for help, and how they have been able to stand up for their faith in our society. So, let me introduce you to our panel of guests. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Jason Tay, who is a wedding photographer from the greatest state in the Commonwealth, Western Australia. Welcome, Jason. We have Patricia Weerakoon, who described herself to me as a 72-year-old disabled Sri Lankan sexologist from New South Wales. Welcome, Patricia. We have Ian Shepherd, who is a public school teacher from Northern Territory in Alice Springs, so welcome him. And lastly, we have Joshua Lawless, whose story you've already heard. Well, welcome everybody to this panel discussion. I know it's a big crowd, but we hope we get a sense of the intimacy and the fellowship that we can have together. It's good to have you here. We just heard Josh's story. Jason, perhaps we can start with you and you can tell us what happened to you. I understand that you were sued for discrimination by a lesbian couple. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. I got into some legal trouble last year because I revealed a conflict of belief with a same-sex couple that was seeking some of my services. And they actually wanted a family shoot. And I gave them the response that I give to all the couples that, same-sex couples that want me to shoot their wedding. And I'll just backtrack a bit, but I've been a wedding photographer for 8 years. And years ago, I saw this coming years ago. And so I've had years to think about how to respond to when I get an inquiry like this. And my response has always been the same. And that is that, we are subjective. We have a subjective product, so we're visual storytellers. And that means that I believe that the best product you'll get is from somebody who doesn't have a religious conflict, right? So I tell them that I'm a Christian, I have a religious conflict with same-sex marriage, and you'll probably get the best result from somebody who doesn't have that conflict. So, I've got an option for you. Here's a list of photographers that are my peers that would love to do the job for you, and they don't have that conflict. The other option is if you really love our work and you still want me to shoot for you, I'll do it, and there's no difference in our skills or professionalism.
So you didn't refuse to provide service?
No. I just think it's in their best interest to have that choice. Because if it was my money and I was spending it, I would want to know.
So what happened?
So before same-sex marriage was legalized, I've said this before, and the response was always, "Oh, thank you so much for being honest and for giving us these options." But then, as soon as it was legalized, the response was, "Thanks, but no thanks," thumbs up emoji, and then I thought, "Oh, that's it." Then a day later, I start getting this wave of hate because they shared my words, my response on social media, and for weeks I get this wave of hate and negative posts, and people sharing my page and just twisting my words to mean whatever they want it to mean. And this is taking a big toll on our family. And so I just decided not to engage it, just keep quiet. And after a few weeks, it died down and then stopped. And
You thought it was over?
Yeah, I thought it was over. I thought, that's it. We're good. And then a month later, I get an email from the Equal Opportunity Commission that there's a formal complaint against us. And and so that began the next 7 months of just a lot of stress.
So what happened to that complaint? You had to go through a commission hearing?
Yeah, so we went through a commission hearing, and then eventually it was, and they made demands, and these were demands that we just couldn't in good conscience agree to. And so it got escalated to the State Administrative Tribunal, and so we were in that process of going through this tribunal, and thankfully, just before the hearing, the complaint was withdrawn, and we've been able to go back to normal life since then. And that was February this year.
That's
so
a wonderful
not
outcome, Jason. But often in these cases, the process is the punishment, isn't it?
Yes.
It's 7 months.
Yeah, and
it's
expensive.
Time,
it costs us money.
Yeah,
it costs us thousands.
Patricia, let us know your story. I think many people know you.
Yeah, I'm what's called a sexologist, and won't go into that now. But I was born in Sri Lanka, so I'm medically trained, and I've been an academic with the university for 25 years. I retired 7 years ago. So what happened was, after retirement, I do a lot of speaking and writing in the Christian for churches and youth work, and I did a talk for Christian school, high schoolers, and in that I talk about what has God got to say about sex? And I often get asked questions about same-sex and transgender because I'm talking about sex. So after one of these talks, there was a BuzzFeed article on it, which was very interesting, which was a really good write-up of what I had said. But I was annoyed. People brought it to my notice. I was annoyed, but I was like, who cares? Worse things have been said about me, and I kind of let it go. I mean, I come from a country where I was persecuted for my ethnicity, so I mean, this is a free country, Australia, I'm safe. So a couple of, maybe about a month after that, I had this guy follow me through Westfield, like screaming at me, "You're transphobic, you're homophobic, you ask Christian gay people not to have sex." I'm like, I tell everybody not to have sex unless you're married in a one-man, one-woman marriage. Like, what's your problem? Anyway, he followed me. I can't say chased because I can't run. And I went into the bank. I went into Commonwealth Bank, and he followed me into the bank. The security led him out. I called the police. Police reluctantly came. And then I called my son, the one who helped me on, the Presbyterian minister who helped me on here. And he and I went to the police station, and I went twice to the police station. Both times, the constable kind of really didn't care. It was like, no big deal. And then I went and I talked to an academic friend of mine who's a lawyer, and he put me in touch with Martin. Yes. Martin Iles. And then that was when I talked to Martin. And Martin said, and he probably won't remember, he said, go back to the police station and don't move till you've taken a statement and given your incident number. So anyway, that happened. I had to go to the doctors. I had anxiety. For 1 month, I really felt unsafe to walk through the suburb I live in. And the same thing, I had also an honorary life membership with our professional association, the Society of Australian Sexologists, and within a couple of weeks, I got this letter from them saying breach of ethical practices. And I'm looking and saying, where does it say I shouldn't say this? But anyway, and therefore, why they should not rescind my honorary life membership. I didn't even know you could do that before you die. But anyway, So these things happen. And through both those university and the SAS proceedings, you guys were amazing. Especially, I don't know how many of you know, I don't know whether you're even here, Christopher Bro here, but he was amazing.
Christopher, you're right here in the front row. Give Christopher a clap.
I mean, he is the most amazing man ever. I don't think I would have got through this all without him. Another young man, Claude Harb from Parramatta. So
what was the
that's
outcome,
the
Patricia?
story. Well, thanks to Christopher, the university went silent and said, we're not going to do anything. The Professionals Association, my letter, they just kind of got back and said, well, as long as you sort of behave, we'll just ignore what you did. I mean, given that most of the association have been my students and call me Auntie Pat, it's kind of interesting. So that's where we are now.
Well, that's good. You're under the cloud, but you haven't been cut off.
Yeah, I'm under the cloud, but I'm under Jesus, so.
Now, turning to you, Ian, thank you for coming all the way from Alice Springs to join us here. You're a teacher in a local public school there. Tell us about the trouble that you got into and what happened.
I'll read this out if I can. Can you hear me? 2016, in August, I posted on a local Alice Springs community Facebook page in the lead up to the marriage plebiscite debate that I thought gays would always be unhappy, married or not, because their chosen lifestyle was wrong. Caused quite a stir. First on Facebook, on the forum itself on the weekend, for the rest of the weekend, then at school, on the media, in the NT News and ABC from Darwin, and within the Education Department. After a meeting with the Regional Director 3 days later, with my job under threat, I took down the post. Although, to embarrass me, in the next few days, people would on Facebook say, I'm just putting this out there, and they'd put my post up again. Now, I wasn't posting anything under direction from the department, but I was actually quite pleased to see my message was still up there. Many on Facebook called for my removal from the classroom, including a gay former student, now in his 20s, who acknowledged I'd never mentioned it in the classroom, but still thought I'd be a negative influence on emerging LGBTQI students.
So, Ian, you've never offended anyone in the classroom. You've never had a complaint from one of your students for conduct in your class. You've never had a complaint from any of the staff who you work with. It was only on the basis of your own personal Facebook posts that the department intervened and threatened discipline. Is that right?
That's right.
That's unbelievable.
And from this former student, just the fact that I'd be in the classroom and the kids knowing that I have those views, whether I express them or not.
So what happened?
Where do you want me to go with that?
You got in trouble.
2 weeks. So I took down the post. 2 weeks later, the department presented me with 4 breaches of conduct, code of conduct, and 2 weeks to reply. So I was at a bit of a low point then, with the job at threat, and a friend of mine said, I think you should talk to this group in Canberra, and that's where we met up with you guys.
And what's been the outcome, Ian?
The department, I think they misstepped in pushing the code of conduct because the lawyers came in and gave them all guns blazing, blew them out of the water. I didn't hear anything for about 5-6 months, nothing. After they'd been told their allegations were ridiculous. They eventually got back to me and said, I could keep posting, just don't offend people. So I kept posting. I offended more people. But I knew that I had the backing of these guys and, in fact, did need to call on them again.
Thanks for your story, Ian. That's very inspiring. We've heard Joshua's story so powerfully said in the video, so I won't get him to go through the story again, but he's still looking healthy today, so I presume that he's doing well. and he's very blessed by God. I want to take you now back and get an insight into what it's like when you first get into trouble. Now, Jason, you've got a wedding photography business. You're going through your daily work. How do you find out that you're in trouble? Can you take us through that journey?
I actually think, okay, so the most difficult part is the online attacks, right? So that's really draining, mainly because they're just writing anything they want. Anyone can read it, and you're trying to run a business, and your clients can read it, anyone can read it. And so it's draining because you don't know when the next one's going to come, and you don't know when they're going to stop. So it takes a big toll. But when it eventually goes away, you're kind of walking on eggshells, not knowing. And then when I got the email, I was thinking, I actually thought it was a bit of disbelief, because you don't think, you kind of think, how could your words, when you just tell somebody you have a conflict, right? How can your words be so misinterpreted that it gets to this stage where the government is getting involved? And so I didn't take it too seriously. I just thought, this is getting out of hand. But it was only when I started to try to respond to the complaint that I realized, oh, okay, we're in trouble. This is not good. And but at the time, I didn't know the Human Rights Law Alliance existed. I'd never read anything about discrimination law. I didn't know anything, so I just felt I was on my own. And when I went to find lawyers, nobody really wanted to help, because it's not popular. You can't make money off this. But eventually, I found my lawyer, Warner Spiker, and Warner put me on to Christopher Bro here and Martin Isles, and taught me about the Human Rights Law Alliance. And that kind of that really helped a lot.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So you go from feeling alone, feeling attacked, to feeling supported. And was that a good transition for you to have with getting Warner Spiker involved, a great lawyer from Western Australia who's part of our alliance?
Yeah, it was huge. It was huge, because you feel like nobody's on your side. Everyone's against you, and you don't know who you can get help from. And people can pray for you, but during that time, you need somebody who can actually give you something tangible to help you, because
Thanks, Jason. Josh, I think you had a very similar experience. The sort of disbelief at first.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just shocked, when I first so it was an email that I received to say that I'd been reported for misconduct. And I just had no idea how that possibly could have happened. I had no idea what it actually was that I'd done until I met with the university. But it was crazy. It's such a nitpicking sort of subculture, I guess you could call it.
And Ian, I've got a couple of the posts here that I want to share with people. Ian said comments like this, very inflammatory. I'm deeply concerned that people would support the sacking of teachers because they oppose same-sex marriage. Or, this is a topic of active debate. The responses he got were things like, I sincerely hope that you get sacked. With a bit of luck, you won't be around our children much longer. You are a homophobic, antiquated, miserable man that is actually incapable of sharing people's love and relationships. And then other people added again with your homophobic tones, and you're a teacher. You should be nowhere near children, you, and then follows the kind of language you occasionally hear on a naval vessel. Ian, how do you respond to the allegation that you're homophobic and a bigot?
I talk to anybody.
And were you surprised at the threats to your job that came through?
I was surprised at the vitriol, and we also foster two girls.
It's all right.
People made the comment that we foster. In other words, the implication.
So they let everyone know that Ian fosters children, thus trying to get people to be activated against him as a foster parent. Now, we have cases where foster parents have been denied the opportunity because of their Christianity, so it's not an unrealistic threat. And all of these people who posted swearing, comparing you to a paedophile, telling you should lose your job. Did you go after any of their jobs? Did you complain to their employers?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
I was polite.
And you're a Christian. And we turn the other cheek.
I turned the other cheek.
Absolutely.
Occasionally I'd delete before I posted, or if I wrote what I thought. But no, I tried to present a reasoned point of view.
Now, Josh, can you tell us a little bit about when you made the decision to reach out for legal assistance and the circumstances?
So it was quite a while after the initial notice I'd gotten to say that I had been reported for misconduct. So it was after I'd already been suspended, and the university said I had the option of returning next semester, but I would need to return with counselling sessions every fortnight to basically teach me how to interact with my peers appropriately in their eyes. So that was ridiculous, but I thought, you know what, I'm fed up with this. I'm just going to go back to uni, I'll cop it, I'll do it. But thankfully I've got two awesome parents back at home in Adelaide who really encouraged me to stand up, stand my ground, stand firm, and just say, no, we're not putting up with this. And we went to Christopher Bro here and his colleague Simon, and they basically from the get-go just said, yeah, sweet, this is going to be pretty easy. Just you relax, rest in God, and we'll take care of the rest. And they did.
I've given a lot of legal advice in my time, and I don't think I've ever said, this is going to be easy, relax, we've got this in hand. But it gave you confidence. Patricia,
Yes.
your experience of getting legal help.
Oh, I think I agree with you that you go from feeling like really alone, although, like I said, my husband and son are immensely supportive. But when you know that you've got someone you can reach out to, like you guys, like Christopher and Claude Hub, and actually know that somebody who knows what they're doing is supporting you and that they believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, that is an amazing strength. Because, look, I'm strong, but I am an old woman.
Yes.
And I come from a country where I was persecuted for my ethnicity. And I thought that Australia was a free country. And I could actually worship. And now Christians are persecuted in Sri Lanka, and I was persecuted for being a Tamil. And I thought, Australia, I can actually live and be Australian and be free. So it was scary. It was really scary. But the university incident was more like I was upset that I gave you 25 years of my life. I mean, how could this happen? And again, so it was like upset and scared and sad and everything together.
Yeah, and that's not an uncommon experience for our clients. Now, you shared with me that when you phoned Martin, when you were being stalked, you said, oh, Martin, I feel bad about getting help with such a small matter. And what was his response?
Yeah, because like I said, it's like nothing, that guy hadn't touched me or beaten me up like might have happened in Sri Lanka. And so I told Martin, this is such a simple thing. And he said something like, a young man following a 70-year-old disabled woman through Westfield is not a small matter. And I was like, okay.
That's wonderful. Now, we've got a minute left for everyone to answer my following wrap-up question, which is, what encouragement can you give to other Christians out there who are living in a hostile world and face hostility for their faith?
All I can say is what drives me on is the fact that the Lord Jesus Christ said, if you are ashamed of me and my word in this adulterous generation, then I will be ashamed of you when I come with the holy angels. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, this is a time, especially in the area where I speak in sexuality, where we need to stand firm on the word of God. May
Amen.
I encourage you to please do it. And hopefully that is my message to you. God bless you all.
And I'll add something there as well, if I may. A great book to read as well is 2 Timothy. I've got two scriptures here that relate to this really well. So one, following on from what Dr. Stephen Shavura was saying earlier, is, so 2 Timothy 4 verse 5 says, but you, man of God, woman of God, keep your head in all situations. And then in 1 verse 7 it says, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline.
Amen. Jason, maybe you can give us a final word of encouragement?
Yes. So I think if you find yourself in a similar situation, the tendency is to run and find a safe outcome. But believe me, we tried, and what we found is at the end of every possible solution was a choice between choosing God or choosing man, and we always decided to choose God. And there's a verse that I want to just share from 1 Peter 3. It's a paraphrase, but it says, "If you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you are blessed. Do not be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled, for it is better, if it is the will of God, to suffer for doing good than for doing evil." So our worst case scenario was always to lose the business, and I thought, if we're going to lose the business, then we want to do it standing up for God.
Can you give a big round of applause for all of our clients who came here today? I just want to thank each and every one of you. It's always been personally edifying for me to be part of your journey.